Howdy everyone, I'm Joshua Schultz, Tyler Waldrop, Stealth Art. We're here at Treadwell Coffee, and make sure you tune in to Good Morning Aurora.
Rise and shine, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is 7:09 a.m. You are listening to Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. It is Monday, the 26th of April, 2021. So good morning to all of you guys. Let's take a collective sip of coffee. Yeah, that's how we doing it this morning. So we got some great stuff coming up for you guys today. We got a great interview as well with a very special guest that'll be happening soon for you guys. As you know, we do the news live on Facebook starting at 8 a.m. But here's just a couple of news topics for you guys to get you going today. Thursday, April 29th, the Criminal Justice Reform Town Hall. HB 3653 was signed into law this year by Illinois Governor oh my goodness, I almost said Pat Quinn. Throwback. No, J.B. Pritzker. And the Town Hall for Criminal Justice Reform is at 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. this evening. There is a registration link for that, which we've posted on our Facebook page for you guys to check out. So please do so and sign up. There's a great panel of experts as well that are going to be taking part in this wonderful event. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire of the National Executive Director of Push XL. Chris Welch, current Illinois Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. Kim Fox, Cook County State's Attorney. Eric Reinhart, Lake County State's Attorney. Sharon Mitchell, Cook County Public Defender. And John Mackey, Director of Innovation of the Alliance for Safety and Justice. There's going to be a question and answer that follows at the end of that. Please register for that. The registration link again is on our Facebook page, and it will be a wonderful event. Appointments are still available up until tomorrow for first dose Pfizer vaccines at 970 North Lake Street. That's the old Carson Perry Scott in Northgate Plaza. You can sign up by going to canevax.org, www.canevax.org. And as we know, the National Guard has taken over that site and is now a state of Illinois-run testing facility. Shouts out. Volunteers are still needed for the NeighborVax Aurora second dose clinic taking place on Wednesday, and that's going to be at East Aurora High School. Our wonderful state representatives and senators have come together to present this great event. State Representative Barbara Hernandez of the 83rd District, State Representative Stephanie Kifwit of the 84th District, State Representative Keith Wheeler of the 50th District, and State Senators Linda Holmes and Karina Villa are all coming together to put this on. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And once again, that's East Aurora High School for the location 500 Tomcat Lane. Shouts out to all of our great public officials who are coming together to make sure this happens, and shouts out to East Aurora High School. United We Stride. Jesse the Law Torres's Boxing Club is having this Memorial Day 5K. It's going to be on May 29th. Registration is $25. Early bird special is $20 for registration, and that includes a race day medal. You can do this virtually or in person, socially distanced with a mask, Wabanzi Lake Park, and it'll be at 8 o'clock a.m. on May 29th. All proceeds will go to benefit Jesse the Law Torres' Boxing Club, and the event can be run up to 2 weeks prior. So you have basically no reason not to take part. So I would encourage you to take part, get out there and do something cool and awesome. All right, so we're going to get ready for the news here, and I want you guys to enjoy this great interview because I enjoyed interviewing this special person. Also, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners, fans, and subscribers. Thank you very much, and shouts out to all of our friends of the show. We're trying to do something positive for you in the morning, give some news, and give a light-hearted disposition on our morning drive into work or our morning wake up with the kids. So we hope that you guys are enjoying the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, and also stick around because on Wednesdays we have Noticias Frescas with our friend Noelia Ruiz of the Wabanzi Valley Wabansie Community College, SBDC, Small Business Development Center. We do the news in Spanish on Wednesdays. And Fridays, we have our sister Jeanette for Jeanette's Splaining, making government bureaucracy fun and digestible. So tune in on Wednesdays, Fridays. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Facebook Live. And that is the news. This is an interview we've been waiting to do for a long time. Today on our show, we have one of Aurora's most well-known public figures, a veteran, father, and a man who needs no introduction, especially not from myself. That trail of superlatives can only lead to one man, Mayor Richard C. Irvin. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right. Glad to have you on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
What does the C stand for?
Can do. Richard can do. At least that's what I tell people.
Right.
No, it stands for Cardell. Richard Cardell Irvin.
All right. Now you just won re-election, so congratulations
Thank
to
you,
you.
sir. Appreciate it.
Yep. It looked to be a very tough election, but you did it and with a good amount of grace too. And I'm glad that you are our mayor again.
Well, thank you much.
45th?
59th.
59th mayor of Aurora. All right. So we've got a lot of questions for you today. But first off, sir, where were you born and raised?
Aurora, Illinois. Right here in Aurora. Born at Copley Hospital, the old Copley Hospital that's being redeveloped at this particular time.
Right.
Born there in 1970, man. Good old
Okay.
days. It was a good year.
It was a good year. That's what they tell me. I wasn't around yet.
All the 70s were good years, though.
All right. Growing up, what impact did your mom have in your life?
She had a huge impact. Now, let me just give you a little background
Sure.
of my mom. She was a teenage mother. She had me when she was 16 and my brother Kenny when she was 17. So a young mother that, as we know today, all too common, especially in our African American community, young mothers, oftentimes, get lost. They're kids themselves having kids. And fortunately, I had my grandparents, her mother and father, that were the parent figures for all of us. Because my grandparents were there, and my grandmother at the time was a stay-at-home caretaker, it gave my mom the opportunity to go out and work and get a job to provide for her kids. So my mom and my grandfather instilled a strong work ethic. And even though, once we moved out of our grandparents' house when I was about 5 years old into public housing, Indian Trail Apartments, Aurora Housing Authority, my mom, even though most of the, family members and mothers, mostly mothers out there,
Right.
didn't necessarily always, go to work every day because they had to take care of the kids.
Right.
Because my grandparents were there, it gave my mom the opportunity to go to work. And I saw that. She got up every day and went to work and always had union jobs. And at times, she worked for AT&T at one point, got laid off and got 2 jobs, one working in a restaurant, another working in the mall. And I saw that work ethic and she instilled that in me.
And when you were growing up, tell us some of your fondest memories and what was Aurora like at that time?
Man. I often think about if I could go back in time, what time period would I like to go back to? And I think it was when I was about 9 years old, 1979. It felt like we had freedom. We were riding our bikes all over the neighborhood. We didn't do much more than ride around the block, but it seemed like we were going on big adventures.
Oh, yeah.
And, my grandparents were both alive, and, my aunts and uncles, my great aunts and uncles, my grandparents' brothers and sisters, and my mom's brothers and sisters, everybody was around, focused on that one little bitty house on 120 North Sumner on the east side. And it was just a good, pure period of time, where you didn't have to lock your doors or, you didn't have to worry about your kids. And if we did something wrong next door, the next door neighbor, Richard Wilson, would spank us and send us home for our grandparents to spank us. Just the good old days where neighborhoods were neighborhoods. Neighbors were family.
What was the downtown or area like at that time?
To tell you the truth, man, right in the 70s is when the downtown started to make the decline.
Okay.
The Fox Valley Mall was being built to change the focus of our downtown as a retail, center point to out toward the Fox Valley Mall in this brand new area that back in the day to get to the Fox Valley Mall you had to drive through past cornfields. Now today,
pictures of that.
Yeah, you've seen pictures.
Yeah.
There was an old drive-in theater, on Eola in New York, and it just yeah, man, in cornfields. So things have changed. If you had come to Aurora 40 years ago, now it's a totally different city. And, you know, over the next couple years, you know, with all the development we'll do, it's going to transform even more.
Who was the mayor of Aurora in 1979?
Was that Jack Hill? I believe it was Jack Hill in
Okay.
1979. Yeah.
Okay. What did you want to be when you were this age? When Richard was riding bikes around town, and because certainly youth have an idea of what they would like to do. What did you want to be?
I want to be an astronaut, man, and not necessarily to go into outer space. When I say astronaut, I wanted to dream big, and I did dream big. I always did. I had just these grand visions, and it didn't seem like it was real at the time. You know, it was just something that, you know, I'd like to strive toward. You know, my grandfather used to tell me when I was a boy, you know, shoot for the stars, and, you know, if you don't get there, at least, you know, try to hit the moon. Anywhere it goes, you're in outer space and you're doing good.
One of the things, and I have a picture that I would like to show you too, because it's very near and dear to me, and it's a memory, and I hope that you remember this memory. One of the things that's important to me is that young people, and young people of color, see themselves as people who can do great things. They don't have to just be basketball players. They don't have to just catch a football. They could be more. When you talk about your grandparents, tell us about your grandfather. Who was he? What kind of man was he?
He was the person who gave me the foundation of who I am today. He was that male. My father wasn't in my life. My mom raised my brother and I, you know, by herself with the help of my grandparents. And he was the man that taught me to be a man. You know, he taught me, you know, very valuable lessons that at the time when he was telling me these things, I just thought it was words he was saying.
Right.
But as I got older, I recognized the value of those words. He told me things like, you know, every time you meet somebody, treat a person like you want to be treated. Treat everybody like you want to be treated. No matter how low of station in life or high of a station in life, treat those people like you want to be treated. And he taught me everything you do well. You know, and that's, I kept those beliefs as part of who I am as a person, and they still are today.
Where'd you go to school?
East Aurora High School, man. I started off at Beaupre School for kindergarten on the east side, then Herman School, then Simmons Junior High,
Okay.
Middle School, and then on to East Aurora High School, man. I bleed black and red. I'm a Tomcat all the way.
All right. And what year did you graduate?
1988.
1988.
Also a good year, brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was.
The 80s were good. Not good the 70s, but the 80s was close, man.
1988, I was 6. How about that?
Yeah.
A lot of good music at that time, too.
Absolutely.
What is your post-high school education?
All right, so my post-high school education, and I'll include the military because that was an educational experience for me, and kind of gave me the military, you know, gave me a different type of foundation. My grandfather gave me the foundation of what it was like to be a man, a black man here in this country, and all the stories he would tell me from when he came up and, you know, went through, you know, equal but separate but equal
Sure.
facilities, but they weren't equal at all. You know,
Right.
He couldn't, you know, walk into certain places or sit at, you know, certain counters, you know, and he told me that, and it gave me the foundation. When I got to the military, you know, it was a different type of foundation. It gave me a sense of pride in who I am as a man in this country, you know, and a sense of drive and direction, you know, and it helped me to recognize that I am capable of achieving things that I never thought I was.
Right.
So I went to the military, got out. I barely graduated high school, man. I had about a C- average.
Right.
And I didn't think that I was that smart. So and even though people told me when I was younger I had the gift for gab and the ability to make, you know, good points even with adults, argue with adults and win arguments, education wasn't necessarily of value to me. So I was looking for a college to go to and found a 2-year college called Robert Morris College.
Okay.
And I went there and I met a teacher that, you know, pulled me aside and said, Richard, you've got more talents and you know I believe in you, and I think I want you to, you know, get A's on everything you do. You know, my goal was to get B's, B minuses because I knew I wasn't that good in high school, so my goal was to work hard and get a B. You know,
Right.
she said, I think you can get an A. I got an A on my first test, and, you know, because she asked me to. And
Right.
I didn't want to let her down. And it felt good. And I got an A on the next test, and I started to believe in myself. Then I realized sky's the limits, and if I just put my mind to it, there's nothing I can't do.
Right.
So I left after 2 years. Robert Morris College became Robert Morris University as a 4-year University. I left for 2 years and worked at an insurance company, Travelers Insurance, as an auditor in Naperville. Left that because it was boring as all get out.
And this is the coffee story that we talked about before the camera started
That's where
rolling.
I tried to learn how to drink coffee, and it just didn't work for me, man. It kept putting me to sleep. I put too much sugar and milk in, and it was warm. You know? But anyway, then I went back to Robert Morris when I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, which my family thought I was crazy, But again, I always dreamed big. Even though these dreams seem unreachable, I wanted to dream big. So I went back to Robert Morris to get my bachelor's degree. Got a bachelor's degree. I was in one of the first classes because it was a 2-year college, and it got accredited by the North Central Credit Association to become a 4-year university. Wow. So I was in one of the first graduating classes, and I said, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I was the first ever from that college or university to graduate and go on to higher education and be accepted and go to law school. And
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Northern Illinois University. Did my 3 years. Got a Juris Doctor. That's the degree you get when you graduate from law school. Took the bar, passed it on the first time, even though a lot of folks don't. But I lived and breathed studying for that bar for 3 months straight. That was my life. I said failure is not an option. Another thing my grandfather taught me: failure is just not an option. And after I graduated, after I passed the bar exam, I got a job as a prosecutor in Cook County, then in Kane County. And that's what started the whole political process for me.
Now, I was aware that you were a prosecutor in Kane, but I didn't know about Cook.
Yes, sir, that's where I started.
Take us back to starting and becoming a prosecutor. Take us the day you started. What was?
Well, I didn't just. All right. So again, I've always dreamed. So I started this dream a long time ago.
Okay.
I was after I quit my job as an auditor at Travelers Insurance Company. I needed money, so I got a job as a manager out of the Fox Valley Mall, Genghis Formalwear, measuring men's inseams for tuxedos for weddings.
Really?
Man. So I'm sitting in the back room one day waiting.
That's why you dress so well. Is that
I'm sitting in the back room one day, man, and saying, man, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't measure men's inseams. Right. I gotta figure out what I want to do. So I'm back in the room doing some soul searching, back in the back room, and playing Nerf hoop because we had a Nerf hoop set up back there. And I'm saying, well, people say that whatever you do in life, you should enjoy it. So it's not really like a job; it's a career. I said, what do I like to do? And I like to watch TV. But really can't get a job watching TV.
Right.
I said, what else do I like to do? I said, well, I like to talk to people. I like to hear their stories. People don't even know. I like to hear, where you're from and where you're going and your dreams. I like people. I said, I like the feeling I get when I help people. Not even the appreciation from the people. I like the feeling I get.
Right.
I said, well, what job can I get where I can talk to people and then help people? And I said, I'm going to be a politician. This big weight came off my shoulder. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I said, all right, how am I going to do it? And I'm going to be a police officer, then I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to become a prosecutor, then I'm going to get into politics.
Got it.
The whole police thing didn't work out for me. I tried. I couldn't pass any of those tests, because, one of the parts of the test back then were, the calmness, of you as a person. And
right.
They did a color test. What color is more pleasing? And they wanted you to pick yellows and pastels and light greens. Well, red's my favorite color. So that's what I was always picking. They said, well, if you pick red, that's anger, that's rage.
This is not the kind of guy we wanted to be.
So I was like, forget trying to be a police officer, man. I said, I'm going to go straight to the law school. Again, my family thought I was nuts. So I just did research. And back then, there was no internet. So I had to go to the library and figure out exactly what do I need to do to become a law student and a lawyer. Right. So I found out the process, started working toward it, and became a law student again, graduated, and then started my dream and my track to become a prosecutor. Became the prosecutor in Cook, one of the most coveted prosecutor positions in the country. Then I left there, 1,000 prosecutors, on staff. Then I left there and became a prosecutor in Kane County with only 50. So instead of being a small fish in a big pond, I became a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
And started my career. And I was, while there, my last 2 years as an assistant state's attorney and prosecutor in Kane County, I was the first ever community-based prosecutor for the city of Aurora. Based in Aurora, working directly with police and the community to address issues from litter to, theft and burglary to, even more serious crimes, guns and drugs and shootings and
that's amazing.
And murder, yeah.
What year was this?
This was in 2002.
Okay. Okay. What are some notable cases that you recall from that time? Are there any that you can, share with time that's gone past?
and let me tell you this, there's a number of cases that I took, because again, my job was to work in the community with our community groups, with our police,
Sure.
on a grassroots level. And there were a number of cases that I personally, prosecuted. But what was most notable was when we could actually change a community. Let me tell you what I mean by that. There was a community in Aurora that was always notorious for gang banging, drug dealing, drive-by shooting, and it was called Hillcrest. And I grew up. My grandparents owned a house not too far from Hillcrest, and we used to play there as kids. And I mean, it went from domestic battery to burglaries, car burglaries, to drugs, to murder out in this community.
All of those social ills.
All of them in one community. And people lived as though, even though this was their home and their neighborhood, it was like they were prisoners in their own home from the crime that consistently went on around there. And the open and notorious drug dealing and drug sales, open and notorious, man. I mean, the police would roll by, they stop for a second, and as soon as police turned their eye, they'd be handing up. It was notorious.
These are the days of just 12 people standing on one location.
Exactly
obviously.
right. Exactly right. And myself and the man that would later become chief of police, Bill Powell, from the police department, and some police officers at the time, Cottrell Webster and Rick Algren. I mean, we were like family, and we went in there and came up with ideas on how to change that community around, stop that criminal element, and not just that, but empower the people to continue to keep their community safe the way they did. We got the people together, the leaders in the community, made a community group, had them take pride, even though it was low-income housing or public housing, had them take pride in it, and take it back. And man, it changed that community around where it didn't just possibly affect that community, it affected all the communities from a 2-mile radius, because it just stopped the violence and stop that environment, man. And you go out there now, man, there's kids playing, and I mean, this went on for decades. My whole life it was like that.
Right.
And now there's kids playing, it's safety, there's cameras, it's just changed that whole community around. So that's one of the major feats that I think I did as a community prosecutor, not so much in the courtroom, but in the community.
Equally as important.
Yes, even more is important, I think, because oftentimes in the courtroom, it's being reactive to a thing. Something's already happened. Something bad's already happened.
Yeah, you're right.
If we go to the community and be proactive, we can stop it before it starts.
You're right. You're right. And that was something, I'm glad you brought up Mr. Powell, because that was a question that I did have as well, because I wanted to say that I tuned into the discussion with Noble.
Yes.
That you had on the City of Aurora's Facebook page
National
live.
Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
Yeah, that was awesome discussion. That was great.
Sir, thank you.
That was really good. I think it was in the context of, I think that was Black History Month, so Dr.
Yes.
Jennifer Norrell was on there.
Yes.
But I learned a lot more about Noble from watching that.
Absolutely.
And we interviewed Mr. Powell.
Did you?
Awesome. Yeah.
Good people.
So when did you join the Army?
I joined the Army immediately after high school. Well,
Okay.
I won't say immediately, about 2 months. So I graduated from high school. I remember that day, like it was yesterday, man. It was 1988. I had a Jerry curl still.
You did?
Man, they were still in style, brother.
But I can't picture.
Man, I had a nightmare once that it grew back, and I'm trying to cut it off and kept growing.
Follow the drip.
But anyway, so I've got my cap and gown, just threw my cap in the air. My mom comes over to give me a hug and hands me $500. I thought I was rich, most money I ever had at one time in my life back then. And I said, all right, Mom, what now? What do I do now, Mom?
Right.
Because college wasn't a reality for me, Matter of fact, my school counselor told me I should get a factory job. Don't worry about college,
Right.
Just get a factory job. That's kind of where your grade point average, suggests.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom says, well, you get a job, just like me, just like your grandfather. You get a job, And I'm thinking to myself, well, I really respect that you and Daddy work at the factories, and Daddy's what I call my grandfather, and you bring home everything. You're working for the fans, but I just feel like there's something different for me. So I kind of flopped around for 2 months through the summer, and I had remembered that there was a guy named Sergeant McKnight, do you remember? That was a recruiter at high school, always talking to young boys about going to the military. And I never thought about it. I blew him off, like, McKnight, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
But after, doing some soul searching for those 2 months as an 18-year-old and not having any direction and not wanting to just simply work in a factory, wanting to do something more and be
Right.
something more, I said, you know what, my mom didn't have any money to put me through college, so I'm going to join the military, get some GI Bill and college fund benefits, and travel the world and,
Right.
serve my country. Then I'll come back and, go to college and, do something different. So that's when I joined the military in August of 1988.
So, August of 1988, you joined the military. What was that? What was that experience like for a young African American?
Man, I tell you what, brother. I remember my first couple days in basic training. I was thinking to myself, I can't believe I volunteered for this.
Right, right.
It was crazy, man. I mean, people, I wasn't used to that type of structure, and that type of someone telling you what to do constantly, day in and day out, and
All
the time, and what they were doing was breaking me down to rebuild me, and they did, and I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, they broke me down, trust me, but rebuilt me into the, again, the man that I am today. It was an experience that I did not like it nor appreciate it, at least the first couple of years while I was there, but I would never change it. I'd do it exactly the same. I would. I'll tell you something also, man. It brings together, the military brings together people from all over the country that aren't necessarily the same or think the same and do things the same. Man, I had a roommate, his last name was Wallace, that grew up in Louisiana, in southern Louisiana, that was a racist.
Right.
He said his father was in the Ku Klux Klan. He had, at the time what I called a Dixie flag, which is the Confederate flag, hanging on the wall in our room. But my grandfather always taught me, treat people like you want to be treated. So I didn't hate Wallace. I tried to explain to him, or I tried to understand from him why he didn't like black people.
Right.
And what was his issue. And we talked and got to understand each other. And he said, well, this is what he told me. He says, Richard, I don't like them other black people, but I like you. I said, well, Wallace, I'm black. He says, but I like you. I said, well, Wallace, if you like me, is it possible that if you got to know these folks over here that you determine that you hate just because of the color of their skin, is it possible that you may like them too? And it got him to think. And it got him to understand that, we're all in this together. We all bleed red. We're all in this man's army, protecting our country. And maybe we're more alike than we're not. So I ran into a lot of people from a lot of walks of life that were nothing like me, that didn't grow up like me, that grew up better, grew up worse, that were, black, white, Latino, and that were racist and hateful, that we all came together as family at some point. And, again, it helped me to understand people.
Military service does that.
Yes, it does. And it helped me understand people at every level, which helped me to become the public servant that I am today.
What was your MOS?
88 Mike. I was a glorified truck driver, man. But I had a high class ranking, and my job, I was assigned to a tank unit. So my job was to transport tank weaponry from one location to another. And when I say tank weaponry, these were what are called missiles that were like 4 feet tall. That once a tank, Abram shot off one of those, it felt like an earthquake.
Right.
So that was my job in Germany when I got to Germany, and I was in Germany for a couple of years. But then I got sent to Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War, and I had a whole different kind of job and a different kind of experience.
You've driven a tank before?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And while I was in Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to guess that for a guy who grew up in public housing, driving a tank had to be king of the world kind of activity.
Man, I'll tell you what, I was in a desert when I was driving this tank, sand flowing up in the air, me just going, and it has this particular rumble because it doesn't have tires. It has, these tracks.
So
it's and it's joysticks like you're almost playing a video game. So it was a strong feeling, man, to be behind that much kind of power.
Right.
It's power, man.
And you are a combat veteran. You were in that. You said the Gulf War.
Yes, sir.
All right. I was at the Veterans Assembly.
Yes, sir.
And I heard you give a great speech and tell a story about being in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. And you guys were, the threat at that time was chemical weapons attacks by the Iraqi forces.
Absolutely.
And I think there was a Scud missile attack, which you guys witnessed. Take me back to that day. And the reason why I ask this is because I believe that people don't understand the gravity of a situation, being away from home, and being in another country. People who haven't traveled and been outside the United States, I don't think they understand like what other parts of the world are like. Take us back to that day, because what I want to get from you is how scared were you?
Well, that was the day you talk about. Now I'll explain the story in a second. That was the very day that I decided that I wanted to spend the rest of my life in public service, in service of someone. You know, I know I want to join the military. You know, at that time I'm 20 years old, not much more than a teenager. You know, I knew I wanted to go to college after, but I didn't have real direction. You know, but again, had been a couple years since I asked my mom what am I going to do with the rest of my life. You know, and I hadn't gotten out of the military and gone to college and followed any of the dreams yet that I had made for myself. But on this particular day, it defined me for the rest of my life. And what happened was, my mission over there in Saudi Arabia was to transport goods and weaponry from Dammam port, where the Navy and the Marines brought the people and our equipment in to the front line. So it was like going from New York to California. It took a couple days to get there, 3 days to get there, about 3 days to get back. And my job in the military didn't have their own vehicles initially when we got there, so they commissioned the nationals, the Saudi Arabians, to drive our tanks and our people from the port to the front line.
Right.
So my job was to be an armed guard to make sure that in driving this vehicle with this person, be an armed guard to make sure this person actually went to where he was supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And there was not convoys, where a lot of trucks. We're just me and this guy on the open road in the desert driving, to the front lines of Kuwait from the port. This particular day that I've spoken of before, it was early in the morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning. We had just been told by a 3-star general the day before that Saddam Hussein normally retaliates within 48 hours of aggression.
Right.
And a war had just been declared by the United States of America. And he says, go get to the front line, hurry up and get the front line. Joe, that's what they call the military, and then hurry up. And all the soldiers in the military call us Joe. Get to the line, Joe, G.I. Joe. Get to the line, Joe, and hurry up and get back. So you don't get involved in the skirmish that is bound to happen very soon. So this particular day, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun hadn't even come up. Me and my fellow soldiers were standing outside, waiting to get on a transport van. In the place we lived in a place called Cobalt Towers, which became famous because later it was blown up by missiles. Yeah. We stayed in Cobalt Towers. We came out. We were waiting to get on the transport van. As we waited there, all of a sudden we heard this loud siren that went off, blaring. I mean, so piercing and blaring, you could feel it in your very soul. You could feel it in your bones. And when we heard that loud siren, our mission, our responsibility was to go into what's called MOP 4. Anybody in the military knows what I'm talking about. MOP 4 means you go into full MOP gear, rubber gloves, rubber boots, a gas suit, which was like charcoal filled, gas suit, and a gas mask. And you'd be standing by with this chemical that you were supposed to inject in yourself if for some reason there was chemical agent chemical agent in the air. So, but that was only if chemical agent was determined. So we had that at the ready. So we're laying in full MOP gear, and after we got in this full MOP gear, we laid on the ground and pointed our M16s in the air, waiting for something to happen. Not pointing at anything in particular, just waiting for something to happen with our chemical agent next to us, waiting to see if there was going to be some type of chemical in the air that would potentially kill us. So as we lay there watching in the sky for something to happen, because this siren meant that there was missile activity that was going to occur soon, we started to see a dark shadow just out of the night sky, dark shadow with a tail of light behind it, and this dark shadow seemed to get closer and closer, and we just lay there with our M16s pointed in the air. No one saying anything, just silence, just laying there waiting for something to happen, knowing that there's no way we're going to be able to shoot anything out of the air, but pointing our M16s, just not anything at all, just in hope that it may save us in some kind of way. And I remember there were 3 things that I could clearly, as I'm sitting here right now, 3 things that I can clearly remember of that day. That siren blaring so loud that it permeated my very soul. The sound of my breath gasping for air in that gas mask as I lay there on the desert floor with my M16 pointed in the air, seeing this dark monster come toward me with this tail of light, and the sound of my own voice saying, "Is this the day that you're going to die?" And it said that over. My voice said that over and over as I laid there, which seemed like for hours, but it was probably only, a matter of minutes.
Right.
And then I told myself, if I don't die today, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure things like this don't happen, making sure I right what's wrong, making sure that I help things. Now, I won't be here in Saudi Arabia because it's the same where I'm from.
Right.
But when I go home, back to the world, that's what we call the United States, the world. You know, when I go back to the world, you know, I want to spend the rest of my life doing things for people, putting right those wrongs. And, you know, as I lay there, you know, thinking, you know, hearing my breath, hearing that siren, you know, gasping for air, and, you know, and hearing my voice, all of a sudden a Patriot missile came out of the sky and, you know, blew this Scud missile up. And it was truly bombs bursting in air as we saw the molten steel flare out of the air, still laying there wondering if there was going to be chemical agent in this, you know, in this explosion. And then eventually we got the all clear signal from the MPs that were in the area, and we got up, took off our gas masks, our boots, our gloves, our suits, all in silence. Stood there in line, got on that transport van, went to the port, and, you know, performed our mission as we always did. But that day defined my life of service from that point on.
What needs to change in America?
I think we need to recognize that there is no us against versus them. There is no us against them. There is only us. There's only us. You know, I think we recognized it during, you know, 9/11 and the terrorist attacks, that we came together as a country. It didn't last long because once that wore off and, you know, we began our war, you know, against the Middle East and Iraq, you know, we started focusing on our hatred and differences toward each other. Once we recognize that we are all in this together, we're all the same, no matter what color our skin, no matter language we speak, no matter religion we practice, we are all Americans. We're all, you know, in this together. There's only us, the U.S., us. And once we recognize that as only us, we're all family with each other. People say to me, you know, why do you call everybody brother? You know, because I look at every person like they are my brother or sister.
Right.
And if I do that, then I would treat every person like my brother and sister. And that's with love.
Right.
So, you know, I think if we start focusing on, you know, that I am my brother's keeper. My neighbor is my family.
Right.
You know, then I think we'll be better as a society.
I worked downtown Chicago for many years. I lived downtown Aurora, and I would commute on the train. Meet folks down there. Hey, Kurt, where you live, brother? Oh, I live in Aurora. Oh, kind of whatever. And but I'm seeing Aurora downtown, nice stuff going on, and it's beautiful. And this is before COVID, so nice, sunshiny, good stuff. And in this question, I want to talk about what I have termed the Aurora riots. Okay, I feel that was a black eye for the city.
It was.
Where were you that day? Take us back to that day.
All right, so that was a long day, and it started off in the parking lot of the police department and the first protest that we had
Right.
about the murder of George Floyd. And the country was angry over this, and it was no different here in Aurora. Aurorans were angry.
Sure.
And it started out as a peaceful protest, and I had the opportunity to speak there and talk about the need to maintain peace, you know, to make sure that, you know, although we all need our voices heard, we've got to do it peacefully. But there was a faction of individuals that showed up for the purpose of causing a riot, causing, you know, indifference and creating animosity. As a matter of fact, once the crowd began to calm to some extent, because whatever happened, you know, the murder that happened to George Floyd didn't happen in Aurora. It didn't even happen in Illinois. It happened 3 states away, you know. But as affected as every other city throughout the country that's affected by it, so, you know, and as a black man, I understood, you know, the need to protest, the need to, you know, upset the apple cart, you know, so we can have the change that we need to, you know, make us all feel like we're equal here in society. I understood that, you know, but there's a faction that I saw break off and said, we're not going to listen to that. We're not going to cool us down and confuse us and talk us out of doing what we came to do.
Right.
And then that's when, you know, all hell broke loose, man. And first this mob marched up to the outlet mall, but at the particular time, the National Guard was up there because they just happened to be up at the outlet mall because testing for COVID was going on, and they were conducting the testing, the
Right.
National Guard. So the outlet mall was blocked off by National Guard vehicles. They saw that and decided it was too difficult. But if they're going to the outlet mall, clearly they were going to cause damage.
Right.
So then from there, they marched from the outlet mall, which is north of the expressway here
Right.
in Aurora, all the way downtown Aurora. Not just in circles marching, picketing, but they marched to a location. And once they got to downtown Aurora, man, this destruction began. People came with the idea that this wasn't just something that just got out of hand. They came with the idea that there was going to be damage. People bought bricks, people bought bats, people bought, and I'll tell you where I was at to see all this. People brought gallons of what appeared to be liquid, which later we determined was gasoline, which they used to set police cars on fire. And after the protest got out of hand at the police parking lot,
Right.
myself and the chief were taken into what's called the Emergency Operations Center. It's like our situation room here for the city. And there we had drones in the air and other camera access that we had available to us. And we watched as the mob marched from the outlet mall to the downtown and erupted into violence and just terrible. And you watched as they burnt down this downtown that we worked, as you pointed out, worked so hard over the last couple of years to improve, and it was disheartening.
It was abject hooliganism.
Absolutely.
How'd you feel?
Man, I felt terrible, man. I felt terrible. So I'm mayor of the city, man, and my job is to protect the city, working with the police department. So we have 300 police officers out there standing strong with 1,300 folks. And out of these 1,300 people, you couldn't tell who were peaceful and who were just peaceful protesters and who were rioters. I felt helpless.
And the reason why I bring this up, because it, as I started when I talked about this, how people perceived this city that I live in. I know 2 black-owned businesses that were vandalized.
Absolutely.
I asked myself, did they not get the memo?
They didn't care, because those folks came with specific interest in mind, specific goal in mind: destroy. Not and at some point, it wasn't even about the murder of George Floyd. It was about their ability to take advantage of a circumstance and to destroy.
What is a common misconception about a mayor that folks have?
That I have absolute authority and control to make things happen. That is a common misconception. Look, man.
So you can't with the snap of your
No,
fingers?
no, I can't. And another misconception is, that I know everything all the time that goes on in this large city. And if I don't, I should. And I'm like, that's not reality, man. I'm the executive. I'm one guy, and I've got chiefs that work for me, and then, division heads that work under that. And then there's 1,300 employees. There's a second largest city in the state, $450 million budget, over 200,000 residents. And I don't have absolute power. I don't, and no person should. I, like the President of the United States, I'm the executive. And, just like Congress, I have a legislative body as well that actually are the ones that really make the decisions. It may be my ideas, but I just don't snap my fingers. I got to put it in front of them and say, what do you 12 think? They're called aldermen.
Right.
And if they think it's a good idea, they'll agree with it, and we do it. If they think it's a bad idea, they won't agree with it, and we won't do it. Simple as that.
A friend of the show told me, she says that I must ask you this question. What's the coolest thing about being mayor?
Coolest thing about being mayor, man. There are a couple things that I look at as cool about being mayor. The definition of cool. The coolest thing about being mayor is I get to help people, man. I get to do that thing that I said I was going to do all those years ago, laying on that cold ground in the desert, watching that Scud missile come toward me. I get to help people, man. I get to put things right, and I get to do it with style and flair and be the leader. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the coolest thing, man. I tell you what, when I swore in as mayor of Aurora, I did it on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, I never went to my office in City Hall. The very next day, I went to Springfield to let people know that I'm a new mayor and new sheriff in town, second largest city. you know, and we're going to be needing, you know, support and resources to help Aurora grow because we got plans.
Right.
So I was there for 2 days. I came back to to my office in City Hall. That first day, the sun was shining. I parked my car in the mayor's spot for the first time, and I'm walking up there's a hill to City Hall where the parking lot is, and I'm saying to myself, man, I'm the mayor. I'm the mayor of this city. And I might have jumped up there and clicked my heels like in the Toyota commercial a little bit, man. And I'm looking around to make sure nobody sees me doing it. It's early in the morning. And I walk into City Hall, and I get to the 3rd floor where the mayor's office is, and I step off the elevator, and I look at the door, and my name is on it, Richard C. Irvin. And I didn't expect it to be changed that quickly. You know, I didn't know what I expected. I mean, it had been the other mayor for 12 years, name on the door every time I went to the 3rd floor to visit him.
Right.
And my name was on it, man. And it was just a humbling feeling that, you know, I get to be the mayor of the 2nd largest city in the state, over 200,000 residents, a city I grew up in, you know, born and raised in, and it felt good.
COVID has had a huge impact on this city in many ways. First of all, the human cost. Secondly, economic. What are the plans that you have for Aurora, not post-COVID, but vaccines are being more distributed?
Mm-hmm.
We've got canevax.com where folks can sign up. Carson's on Lake Street, 970 North Lake Street, different things. I've been proud to volunteer at some of those events. I do like what the city is doing to help our people. What's the plans for moving forward?
Well, man, the reality is COVID was and is a reality here throughout this country and, you know, in this state and in this city.
Right.
The plan is to move forward, recognizing COVID exists, but to follow through with all the plans that we had started, you know, years ago. Plans that I have been dreaming about for decades. This will not stop us. This will not slow us down even. You know, we took a little break because the world had to,
Sure,
you know, get COVID in check. But now it's time to kick open these doors. It's time to get back to work. It's time to get back to building. It's time to get back to moving Aurora forward. And now, you know, with the support that we're getting from the federal government, you know, and the COVID relief dollars that we expect will come, that will you know, plug that hole, that gap that was caused by the lack of revenue from all that time we were shut down.
Right.
Our Outlet Mall, our Fox Valley Mall, our casino, our theaters, you know, the whole city. You know, we're going to use that money and invest it so we can get a return on investment over the next couple of years, and we're going to push Aurora forward. We've already got so many plans, and we're ready to roll. We're ready to kick these doors open and make it happen. And we will.
I noticed that the bridge was completed even during
Yes.
COVID. That is awesome. I look forward to sitting or perhaps standing on that bridge watching fireworks and when that happens. River Edge Park seems to they have a summer schedule that's been announced,
Absolutely.
so I think that'll be
Starting in July.
coming back. Yeah. Sir, your detractors say you're out of touch. Are you?
All right. So I had a conversation about one of the things that we're going to recreate here in the city of Aurora is our neighborhood outreach team. Oftentimes, when you ask me, you know, what are the misconceptions as mayor? One of the misconceptions is that I can be everywhere all the time doing everything. You know, that there are people that have groups over here that want me over here. There are people that have functions over here that want me over here. I'm one person. I can't do everything. I can't be everything to every group, you know, to all people. I've got to, you know, be the leader, the guy at the top creating the vision. And then the folks under me have to help make that vision come to life. So when people say I'm out of touch, I think what they mean is I'm not out in the community as much as they would like me. I'm not participating in their events as much as they would like me to. But unfortunately, being only one person, I have to, you know, I have to have a role that makes the whole system work. And, you know, what I want to do more is make sure that in this system that's working, we touch every part of the city. We touch the neighborhoods. We touch the communities. We touch everything that we need to touch to make sure that, you know, that all of our residents are satisfied. But, you know, I unfortunately, I'm just one person, and I wish I could have more of me, but, you know, and I'm sure a lot of us do.
Right.
You know, but unfortunately, that just can't happen. And when people say I'm out of touch, I think it's because they don't recognize that, you know, I'm the executive. I'm the guy at the top, and I can't be all those things that people want me to be.
And that's why we have the city infrastructure that we have.
Right, exactly.
12 aldermen,
Exactly.
a city council, things like that.
Right. And let me just say this, because, I'm born and raised here, I know so many people, especially in my black community, they expect of me that I be like what I used to be. Richard from the block, from the hood, but I can't be that anymore. I just can't.
I'm glad you said that. I have a picture that I would like to show you.
Yes, sir.
I want to know if you remember this. Remember that?
Wow, wow.
That's me and my son.
Man, how old is he now?
He's 8. He'll be 9 this year.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
That was, I think that was about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. You were out riding bike.
Yeah.
My son and I were playing, and you came over, and that means a lot to me. And the reason why that means a lot is because I am happy that my son can see African Americans doing something other, as I said when I started, than catching footballs and dunking the basketball and being somebody of a strong caliber.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. So I'm glad you remember it too. 'Cause I was hoping, I hope he doesn't like. All right. So we talked about the city. What's next for Richard Irvin?
And a lot of folks ask me that, especially because I won this last election with such a large margin. But let me tell you, man, I focused, most of my adult life on being here and being the mayor of the city of Aurora, man. So what's next is just doing a damn good job over these next few years as mayor and taking Aurora to the next level and continue to transform our city back to what people say it used to be 50, 60 years ago, and just being a good public servant. If there is another office for me in the future, I'll think about that when that time comes or if it presents itself. But right now, I just want to be a good mayor of Aurora.
Lastly, the show ends on a final note, on a positive note. What is your message to the people of Aurora today and going forward?
Man, over this last couple years, from Pratt mass shooting to COVID-19 to civil unrest, to the instability of our budget and our revenue and income for the city, and we've been through a lot, man. Just know that we are Aurora strong, and that's just not words that we say. That's who we are as a community. That's who we are as a people. We are strong, and we have overcome, and we will continue to overcome. And let's continue to work to make our community the best community we possibly can, and not just for us, for our future, for our kids' future, for our kids' future. Let's be family, man. Let's be the Aurora that I know we have the ability to be. Let's make each other proud.
Sir, on behalf of Good Morning Aurora, we appreciate you coming on to the show and talking to us.
Well, my pleasure to be here.
We really do. And congratulations on your successful re-election. And we appreciate you as a veteran, and we are looking forward to your leadership taking us into the next era for the next 4 years.
My pleasure.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
All of you guys out there, thank you for tuning in to this wonderful episode. We appreciate Mayor Irvin, and be blessed and have a wonderful day. Peace.